This week on To the Contrary.
First, the contraception mandate heads to the Supreme Court. Then, is Sheryl Sandberg's anti-Bossy campaign too bossy? Behind the headlines, 5 esteemed former members of Congress on the past and future of women in Congress.
Erbe. Welcome to the Contrary, a discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, reproductive rights versus religious rights.
Birth control coverage, Obamacare, and religion. The Supreme Court hears arguments this coming week in a controversial case challenging the Affordable Health Care Act contraceptive mandate. Lawyers for-profit corporations Hobby Lobby and Conestoga Wood claim they shouldn't be required to provide birth control coverage to their female employees. They say to do so contradicts their religious beliefs. The question at the heart of Sebelius versus Hobby Lobby is whether a corporation has religious rights.
What's at stake really is a major question in this country as to whether or not corporations can have a religious belief. In fact, what is happening is that the owner of the corporation is trying to impose his religious beliefs on his employees, thereby denying women independence in their health plan of contraceptive coverage in a way that everybody else in the country can have.
Groups are lining up on both sides. Religious conservatives who filed most of the amici briefs fear their constitutional religious freedom rights are under attack. Women's health and rights groups fear a ruling in favor of Hobby Lobby violates the religious rights of employees and could pave the way for other discriminatory practices.
So, Kay Cole James, do you think when the framers were sitting around putting together the Constitution and they inserted the free expression clause, do you think they were thinking about having it pertain to corporations?
They probably couldn't have imagined the corporations that we have today in terms of size and scope. But we do know this, that in subsequent court cases, as well as statutorily, the precedent has been set and corporations are protected.
I certainly don't think so. In spite of the Supreme Court's wrong-headed Citizens United decision and Mitt Romney's crazy logic, corporations are not people, my friend.
I'll agree, actually. The simple answer is no. I don't think our founders thought that corporations are people. In fact, back in 1878, when the Supreme Court first ruled on the limits of religious freedoms, they said corporations are not people. So we're here at present day, and I think the answer is still no.
I think Hobby Lobby's religious freedom is a euphemism for they're imposing their religion on the rest of us.
So, and let's talk about that. I mean, I always look at these cases and I think you're allowed to be a Christian, a Muslim, a Wiccan, whatever your religion is in the United States. When the framers, remember, they were being told, the people who left England were being forcefully converted to Anglicanism, and that's why they left. They didn't want that. They came here so they could be whatever they wanted to be.
Absolutely, but remember, the separation of church and state was to keep the government from imposing on citizens any kind of government religion.
But when you can do just about anything, completely anything you want in church, observe any religion you want. I mean, this is such a tiny issue in terms of your freedom of expression of religion. It doesn't make sense to me.
It isn't a tiny issue when the issue for the Green family, and I think we have to be honest in this debate and discussion, it's not about contraception, it's about abortifacients. And for them, it's the taking of a human life. And I think we have to respect that if someone doesn't want to provide the means and the mechanism to take another human life, that's pretty big stuff, and we ought to respect that.
I think this is something broader that's been going on with the extremists on the right. It's been going on not only with women's issues, but also with gay rights in Arizona, with minority voting rights in Kansas. There's a battle underway to kind of redefine and limit everybody who's not white, straight, and male.
And are they winning?
Well, I think they're winning with the white, straight men. And I think they're losing everybody else to, to the other side. Because at the end of the day, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say you're for less government and less, involvement in people's lives and then get into my bedroom and into every other part of my life.
I have to disagree. I mean, this is not about being white, straight, and male on this one, at least. This point is all about exactly what Kay just said. You cannot compel these people who believe that they should not take another life. They don't want to be compelled to provide that, the mechanism to do so. And
but they do, actually, I mean, the way the Obama administration set it up, they're not contributing. They're not paying a penny for this.
Right.
Yes.
So it's not taking any money from them. They are not contributing to what, and of course the argument, getting back to what you said, Kay, is abortifacient, birth control pills. I mean,
there are 20 different contraceptions that FDA approved. The Green family is actually prepared to do 16 of them. The 4 that they are not, they feel very strongly and personally that those 4 actually take human life. I think we can accommodate that.
So then why do you not? You say these are their religious beliefs because not everybody shares. In fact, a lot of, I would say probably in this country, more people that don't believe that RU 486 or the abortifacients are taking a life. Then why don't you see it as them imposing their religious beliefs on these people who want?
They are imposing their religious beliefs. I think they started this company in their garage. People have the opportunity to come and either work or not work there. And if you find this so abhorrent, then this is a company that you might choose not to either buy from or work for.
But that's got a point. That's a very slippery slope that we're going down here. Are we then putting the onus on job hunters to say, well, you need to somehow figure out the religious beliefs of the owner of this company, somehow, some way to determine whether or not that owner is going to preclude you from getting the full variety of health services that you deserve as a citizen, as a human being, in terms of your human rights to have access to health care. It's too far.
I think it's very easy. When you're job hunting, it's right there. It's apparent from HR. I mean, it's not a big dig to find out that contraception wouldn't be available to you, and you can move on.
And jobs are so plentiful, you can just go and get another one, right?
You make a good point. The jobs are not that plentiful, but I don't think it's that hard to figure it out, that an employer is not willing to give you something, and if you don't agree with that, and I don't think contraception is a right. I just don't.
Well, even beyond that,
99% of women use contraception at some point. I assume
98% of Catholics use contraception.
Yes, I assume both of you have as well. And it cannot be, what happens is that we also, okay.
So maybe I'm in that slim percent.
You're the 1%.
Right? So,
people throw around a lot that Catholics, 89% of them use contraception.
No, 98.
Don't see it as a moral issue.
Yes.
Don't see it as a moral issue.
Used it.
Even use it. But I think if you ask the question about abortifacients, you would get an entirely different answer. Exactly. And so there is a distinction.
Sounds like a poll you should commission.
Well, there's that.
That would be
But I do want to, let's, before we leave, who's going to win this case?
I certainly hope that we leave the bill and the law intact as it is. The bottom line is that no one should have the right to impose their religious beliefs on me.
It's going to reverberate, to others.
And I don't think the government should impose its religious standards on me. And if I find abortion abhorrent and I'm running a business,
then
they shouldn't come in and force it.
Don't get one.
And I'm not paying for one either.
No,
but
you're not.
In terms of what's going to happen with the case, anybody's guess.
I don't think it's anybody's guess. It's 5-4. The conservative majority is going to rule just like they did with the.
They might split it right down the middle between personal and corporate.
4.5 and 4.5. I haven't seen a ruling like that. But okay. But let us know what you think. Please follow me on Twitter at Bonnie Erbe. From banning birth control to banning Bossy.
Ban Bossy is Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg's new campaign to empower young girls. It is coming under intense scrutiny. Sandberg claims young boys get praise for being assertive while young girls are criticized. So Sandberg is teaming up with the Girl Scouts to get people to stop using the term bossy to describe young girls.
Stubborn, pushy, stubborn, bossy.
A number of high-profile women are backing the campaign. Some critics call it simplistic. One critic says it leans too far. Anita Harris, who writes books on female identity, argues banning Bossy may lead to bullying.
My concern is that if the girls who are more forceful are the ones who are considered leaders, that could be detrimental to the development and strength of other girls. I think there can be a fine line between being overly bossy in the worst sense of the word, which is kind of dictatorial or really telling people what to do, and the shade of becoming a bully and having that become acceptable.
Also this week, Sandberg's book took a hit in the blogosphere, which went wild over one woman's effort to negotiate a higher starting salary, as Sandberg suggests. A woman known only as W says she was offered a tenure-track professorship at Nazareth College in Rochester, New York. She took Sandberg's advice and asked for a higher salary, plus a short list of other benefits. The college thanked her, but rescinded its offer.
So let's start with the bossy part of this discussion.
Yes.
Is Sandberg right or wrong?
Well, I think all of the efforts towards this issue, all of the above are good things, but I think this was an ill-conceived way of approaching it. I think bossy was the wrong word, and there are several other words that begin with a B that we could have used first. I think the larger issue is less women.
Really, I can only think of one.
Well, yes. Less women, starting in the mid-90s, want to go into leadership, and I happen to blame the media. I think this is a bigger issue that, on average, our young teens are consuming 7.5 hours of media a day, and the message young women are getting is that you shouldn't, and girls, that they shouldn't want to lead for many reasons. It's a very big issue. However, I think the word bossy has a connotation, for me personally, when I heard it, of the girls that were mean to me in grade school. And bossy in leadership in the grown-up world, bossy leaders are not necessarily good leaders. Like, I think as women, we are great leaders, and part of what we do really well is, for example, to be collaborative. So I think it was the wrong choice of a word, and the campaign is probably
Is there another word you might have selected?
No, I don't believe the words. I spoke at GWU last night, and the number of words that women threw at me that were used at them as insults, including assertive. I think we just have to train young women to be better evaluators of what's being thrown at them and give some validity to their messaging and let them be conscious consumers of what's around them.
You know, Bonnie, I think this is much ado about nothing. Quite frankly, I have a whole list of words, and bossy is way down on the list. I raised a young woman who's strong and assertive and a leader and all of that. And out of respect for you, I won't list all of the words that I have to go
and
through.
And the FCC,
yes,
for that matter.
before we even get to bossy. But at the end of the day, what kind of women are we training and raising up that can handle that?
I also agree. This is much ado about nothing. You're talking to a girl who was called bossy growing up the entire time. But I was called bossy.
Did it help you or hurt you?
I think I landed up where I am today because of that, because I always took control of every situation with my siblings, with neighbors, and anybody who would listen. I think it did land me up where I am. I decided to be assertive more than anything else. I'm not sure I understand this whole thing. I think this is, to me, an attempt for Sheryl Sandberg just to get her name out there even more.
I have a better idea. I just saw last night, because I have an 8-year-old grandchild, Frozen. We should all hold hands and sing Let It Go. And that is such a better message for young women today.
Well, you know, I think that Sheryl has the best of intentions. However, I really think that she has a hard time understanding the challenges that women and girls go through that did not come from her privileged background.
Yes.
And like you said,
Yes.
bossy is way down the list. Instead of becoming a card-carrying member of the word police, I'd rather that she focus on more substantive
But, you know,
things.
I mean, she's not alone in this. She did get the Girl Scouts, to go, which is, you know, a fabulous organization, to go in with her. But I do want, we only have a small amount of time left. In terms of the professor who tried to get the job at Nazareth College and was turned down, she was following the lean-in advice.
Yeah.
What happened?
She leaned too far.
You know, No, it's sad. Really what she did was expose the sexism in the whole industry in terms of tenure track positions. It is not usual. I mean, it's not common that women even have any maternity leaves if you're a professor. That's one of the reasons why I decided to have my first child while I was in graduate school, because I knew that going in. The whole industry needs to be changed to be more woman-friendly, despite their sort of liberal leanings overall.
Very sad that that happened, and I think it was interesting that she followed Sheryl's lead on that, and maybe that caused her to lose this whole thing, I mean, in the end. But I think also it was a good move, you know.
Good move by, I'm sorry.
I think it was a good move by her to employ that kind of tactic, because it exposed that in academia, and so it's done something positive.
And it's all of the above. I mean, we need to change our culture. We need to empower our young women and teach them to be more assertive and ask for things and fail and move on. But then as well, you know, backing up, there's a cultural issue, and we got to call that and put it out there. I think that's kind of a fallacy in some of what has come out of Lean In, that these women feel like they're being crumbled by it. You know, we need to help them and say there are problems, there are faults in the system. What you're facing is valid. There is still sexism. We are still, in many ways, stable or moving backwards by many measures as women. So it's an all-of-the-above solution, and I believe, like, joining hands, and we all have to help each other. That is, like, point one. Women have to support other women.
All right, terrific. Behind the headlines, former women members of Congress. This Women's History Month, to the contrary, spoke with 5 women who served in the House and Senate. They talked about the past, present, and future of women lawmakers.
When I was elected in 1986, we had 24 women on the House side and 2 women on the Senate side.
The first day I came to Congress, there were 21 women in the House and 2 women in the Senate. Now there's 99 women in the House, and there are 3 delegates, and there are 20 women in the Senate.
Women are winning office in record numbers, but a significant gender gap persists. Just ask former House members Connie Morella, Barbara Kennelly, and Mary Bono. They joined former Senators Blanche Lambert Lincoln and Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun to discuss women's leadership at a forum hosted by the Foundation for the National Archives.
I ran for the United States Senate and became the youngest woman in the history of our country to serve in the United States Senate. So it's still a title now to be broken. To all you young women out there.
Lincoln remembers discussing daycare as a new senator. A male colleague asked, quote, "Can't the grandparents take care of the kids?" End quote. Mary Bono, who began her political career after her husband, Sonny Bono, died in a tragic skiing accident, remembers there was no easily accessible ladies' room.
You'll be happy to know there is now a ladies' bathroom off the floor, so you can actually get to the bathroom during a vote and make it back while the vote is on, and there's a women's gym.
We had the height of women coming into Congress in 1992. We call that the year of the woman. 24 new women were elected. And many of us, hopefully, and believed that this was going to be the start of kind of an acceleration of the number of women, possibly to that percentage, or close to it. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened.
There's still a gender gap that needs to be overcome. Women are half the population. And in a democracy, government by the people, right, to me suggests that women should be equally represented in all of the levels of government, at the national, state, and local levels.
You'd think that we would have 50-50 by now, and unfortunately we don't.
We need more women in the United States Congress, not because they're smarter, not because they're prettier, but because they have a different perspective.
Studies show women are less likely to even consider running for office than men. One reason for that could be heightened partisanship.
Polarization in Congress has discouraged women from running. It has also discouraged people from telling and supporting women to run. And when they see the caustic rhetoric of campaigns, they say, "Oh, I don't want to expose myself to that, let alone my family." And so I think the environment is such that it is not encouraging women.
Unfortunately, the parties don't get along like they used to, and that is really too bad, but I don't think it has to continue.
Women, if elected, could be the solution.
Their ability to help bridge the differences, as well as build friendships, because that's what women do. They build friendships because they work as a team. And I think that's a great example that they can set in the Senate and in the House.
But women, even on the same side of the aisle, aren't monolithic. they know how to debate the issues. Just recently, the Senate took up 2 different bills to curb sexual assault in the military. Both were crafted by women.
Women are equally capable of political back and forth and fighting for their points of view. So in some respect, I don't believe, certainly women aren't the weaker sex when it comes to political fighting, and that's a great thing.
There's not a one-size-fits-all. Women range in terms of their views in the same way that men do, and so you will see the same kinds of differentiations among women.
People thought that because we were women, we were all alike. And that's not the case. I mean, we're all different. We come from different backgrounds, different regions. Women can be very independent without being ugly to one another.
Because of all this disagreement in Congress, people say, oh, why would anybody go into politics? I just can't imagine it. They're all terrible. Well, this is a very good opportunity for women to run. We could do a lot better if there were a lot more women there.
So why is it that this, Avis Jones DeWeever, that this gap still persists? I mean, we've made progress. Of course, it's been stalled for a while now in the pay gap. But 20%, and there are so many other developing nations that have had female presidents and prime ministers. So
exactly. In America, we lag far behind when it comes to women's representation in Congress, and there are a number of reasons. Part of
in politics generally.
Exactly, and part of which is that sometimes women don't. First of all, women aren't asked, they aren't recruited at the same rate as men. Oftentimes when they do sort of jump into the fray themselves, they aren't supported lots of times by the traditional party mechanisms to the same degree that men are. And thirdly, sometimes women are less likely to believe that they are qualified to run, even when they have the same qualifications as men who do run and succeed. And so, once again, this is another example where we need to address institutional barriers as well as individual barriers that keep women from throwing their hats into the ring.
How do you address it?
A couple of different ways. First of all, we need to make sure that the parties themselves are sort of pushed to recruit more women and support the women who are out there running for their different positions. And we need to go around and educate women as to the importance of their voice and providing them with the support that they need to be and in their runs.
What she said. I absolutely agree.
The DNC has had recruiting and prepping women programs for 20 or more years. The RNC for at least the last 5 or 10.
They really have, and I think both parties now recognize the importance of doing that, particularly with the gender gap. But having said that, I think that there are some entrenched mechanisms and in both parties, and it tends to be more whose turn is it, who's up next. And so the good old boy network tends to pick the candidates rather than looking at an open process. But things are so bad right now that I think that
for Republicans and women, you mean?
Yeah. If you're a Republican woman and want to run, you pretty much could, and I encourage you all to do just that.
So you do think the party would be, the Republican Party would be more supportive of women?
I think that that where we are right now with the Republican Party, the recognition is there. We've got to address this issue, and I think that women are welcomed into the party leadership, welcomed into the role as candidate. And there's never been a better time. And I just hope we see, that's the institutional piece. Now, on the individual side, I hope that the women will step forward and accept the challenge.
Do you ever think about running for office?
I have, but as I've traveled the country talking with potential first-time candidates, mainly women, I've sat down with them and said, are you thinking about what this is going to do to your life? And the number one answer I get back is, no, I haven't thought about it. And we sit down and we look at what it's like, what it's going to be like. We lay out the campaign plan. We see who the farm team is, all the fun stuff that goes into putting on a campaign. And eventually we get the answer, I don't think this is the right time for me. And that's what's been disappointing, because they never think it's the right time. My kids, my life, what are they going to say about me? I've got this in the closet. And that's what the problem
I think
is.
a lot, well, first of all, we have to help our Republican women get more women to office, because after the last election, 30% of of the Democrats in Congress are women. So the Democrats have done a better job, and I'm supportive, as you know, my organization is to help Republicans really work on that issue, and I hope they do. And I think it also goes down to, you know, the leadership, women wanting to get in leadership. It's not only in politics. This is an issue with the millennial generation, period, that we all need to address, you know, to encourage them. The leadership numbers have gone down since the mid-90s again in all different, in corporate America as well. And I think we need to give that message and pull up other women like what Senator Gillibrand is doing off the sidelines.
Terrific. Thank you. We're out of time. That's it for this edition. Please follow me on Twitter and visit our website, pbs.org/to the contrary. And whether you agree or think to the contrary, see you next week.
It's more.
She will run some point.